first time, I realized rules didn't have as much control as they originally did in my mind was when I went to India. I was about 5 years old, sitting in this classroom, and the classroom was large, quiet, and heavy with expectations. And in the center of the classroom was a teacher. Now, this teacher didn't just feel like an authority figure. In fact, she felt untouchable, almost godlike. And because of that, we all feared her. When she walked by, it was an expectation to bow our heads and say, "Good morning, madam." And I guess we didn't just fear her, we feared of what would happen if we didn't follow. So every day, it repeated the same cycle over and over again. But it all changed one day. I recall my teacher was yelling at me. I don't know why, but my legs were shaking, my hands were trembling. I could feel one tear fall, then another, and I could feel every pair of eyes in that classroom bore into my back. I couldn't exactly recall the words I feel, but I guess it's closer to fear and embarrassment than anything else. But everything changed when I saw my mom in the corner of the room. And I've never seen her run so fast. She ran, put her hand on my shoulder, and demanded answers for why my teacher was even yelling at me. And for the first time, this once powerful woman, who seemed to carry the room just by existing there, seemed to hesitate. She seemed afraid almost. And I saw this iron box that surrounded her turn into delicate glass almost immediately. So then she stuttered, and then she said I was interrupting the classroom environment. So my mom asked one question: how? For that, my teacher had no answer. And I saw this thin layer of glass break away. And beneath that glass, I saw a kind, delicate woman with a family and kids who worked day and night to ensure her children got a proper education. The same education I feared. And that's when I realized rules aren't natural laws made by the gods above. They're human decisions. And some were made to protect us, and others were made to control us. And art begins when you learn the difference. Every part of our lives are formed by rules and norms that control our very ideologies. And the thing that's interesting about these rules and norms is the fact that they change everywhere you go. Every country, every community, every house has their own set of rules and norms that determine our very thought process and how we perceive the world. So what if I told you that in exactly 5 days, when the sun goes down, all the rules that once existed would cease to exist immediately? Would this create a new form of freedom, or do you think the lack of rules would become apocalyptic? This is a question that's been circling around my brain for months, and a large part of this answer can be hidden in the experiment Rhyme Zero. You see, Rhyme Zero was an experiment gone wrong, where Maria Abramovic stood still for 6 hours with a table next to her. And this table held many items. Some were comforting, while others were not so much. And she made it very clear that for those 6 hours, anyone could do anything to her using those items. And at the beginning, people were very kind and generous. They were putting flowers in her hair, kissing her cheek, hugging her. But it was only because they were aware that other people were watching them, fully conscious of every choice they were making. And I'd say this is similar to trying to touch a burning pan. While you're afraid and you have the full awareness that someone's going to care for your wound and you will not be held responsible, you're still afraid. And everything changes once, that very moment, when you touch that burning pan. Because at that moment, you're no longer afraid. You're no longer tired of watching everything happen. And just like that, over time, people begin to understand that they could do anything without retributions. And once this moment, like touching the burning pan, occurred, people got the knives, people got the chains, until one person picked up the gun and bullet. After holding the gun and loading the bullet, he held it up to her neck and slowly tightened the trigger using her own finger. But then finally, someone pulled the gun away. After the 6 hours, when Miss Abramovic moved, all the people who once attempted to cut her, attempted to break her, ashamed of what they'd done, they fled. These normal group of people, who are all most likely a civil part of society, given the opportunity, were willing to hurt Abramovic and almost kill her, just because they were given the opportunity to do so. And this says a lot about humanity, and the things we're capable of when there are no rules to guide us, when there are no rules to control us. So now we know that without rules, we become something a child's book would call a monster, something a child's book would call rather a villain. But we have to look at both sides of the coin. If we know that rules are so unnecessary, then what about the rules that bring conformity? What about the rules that control us and stop us from being who we really are? As a black belt in karate, we were first taught our punches, then kicks, and then over time, we learned these wide range of movements, all with different meanings and uses. And then you finally earn your black belt, but that starts a new opportunity where instead you use the same things, kicks and punches, but instead the same rules and principles that once taught you stop you from improving. It's similar to trying to shed an old skin that now became your barrier in order to become a new person. And as a black belt myself, I remember before I was a black belt, I was practicing the same kick over and over again until my legs were sore. And it was perfect. My teacher told me it was perfect. It was perfect because it had the right angle, it had the right height. But the issue was, it wasn't applicable. When I was in a sparring match and I tried to use the kick, it did absolutely nothing and I lost the point. Because I was scared of using the kick right. Because it followed the rules and norms too perfectly. And that's not what we want. So when I got my black belt, I realized I needed to change something. So after getting my black belt, I decided, instead, I was gonna work on making my kick my own. So I changed it just a little bit. It was no longer perfect. It no longer followed the rules and norms that were prescribed to it at the very beginning. But now it was mine. Now I could use it in a sparring match without being afraid that it would be messed up. And I find the same thing with art. As a competitive artist, we were always taught to color inside the lines. And when we colored outside the lines, we were reprimanded. As a child, I recall my parents gave me a coloring book and coloring pencils. And this is when I found my love for art. But they were a little concerned because of the fact that my art looked a little bit more like this. Now, what they didn't understand was I was trying to draw rainbows and butterflies. Like, I don't know what their problem was. And they didn't exactly understand. Now, for quite a while, my mom simply believed I had awful hand-eye coordination, and she wasn't exactly wrong. I still can't throw a basketball even if my life depended on it, but that's for a different time. Now, we know that repetition doesn't lead to evolution, because if you copy a stencil, can you really call yourself an artist? If you do the same thing as anyone else does, can you really change the world? And we learned this from some of the best artists in the world, like Picasso, and even Abramovich, with their set of experiments that push the human limits beyond our imagination. Because, as Ralph Waldo said, to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you someone else is the biggest accomplishment. And he's right. Now we know that rules are important for us because without them we become something unrecognizable. And we also know that rules bring conformity and try to control us. So what's the thing in between? How do we save ourselves? And the answer is hidden within ourselves. We have to look in the mirror and find who we truly are. Ask yourself this question when you look in the mirror. What can I do to be myself without making something illegal, without hurting someone? And that's your answer right there. Because when a child colors outside the lines, when an artist defies convention, when a black belt stops counting their punches, we're all seeking the same answer. Freedom only has meaning when it's rooted with awareness, because freedom without empathy is chaos, but freedom with awareness, that's creation. And maybe that's what our world needed today. Not fewer rules, but more places that taught us who we really are, more places where rules don't control us. So tomorrow, I want everyone here to do something a little bit different, something that's hopefully not illegal of your choice, but something that breaks the conformity our society desperately tries to control us with, because as John F. Kennedy said, conformity is the jailer of freedom and enemy of growth. And I hope everyone in this room takes this piece of information with them wherever they go. Thank you.